Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled parent stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen completely loses it when my computer isn't able to play Roblox. After that, am I the jerk for demanding payment for items ruined by a kid I was supposed to supervise? And after that, I can't drive anywhere without permission? Okay, I'll follow that rule maliciously. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to play Roblox. I'm more of a Minecraft woman myself. So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen completely loses it when my computer isn't able to play Roblox. Info and backstory. I'm 14 and have lots of things I enjoy doing. Among them all is computers. Building them, benchmarking them, selling, gaming, all of it I love. Recently though, we kind of lost our foothold in life, which caused us to not have the financial prowess we did before. It was never a lot, but enough. This caused me to sell my computer, and ever since I've been using a gateway laptop that's very old, Pentium T4200 paired with a Vista, so it doesn't run many games. A list of games it can run are as follows: Counter-Strike Source, Counter-Strike Condition Zero, and Half-Life, all at an average of 25 to 49 frames per second. Story. My aunt, same one who devalued my eagle penny, comes over with her daughter and her daughter's friend. In this story, only one is really important right now. Let's call the entitled friend Nate, as he's the important one for right now. Nate comes knocking on my door and then opens it. I'm playing CSS with a few friends who have the game. Nate. I was told I could play Minecraft on your computer. Me. Sure, in like 10 minutes. To the kid's credit, he's very patient and usually quite nice. He came from an unstable home, so I don't entirely blame him. 10 minutes pass, and I can see he's a bit impatient. I had some schoolwork I could do on my phone, so I set him up on Minecraft. The only problem is, my computer is way too low spec to run Minecraft. The only Minecraft I got to run at a playable frame rate, 40 frames per second, was beta 1.7 at tiny render distance. I got him on the game and then left, thinking nothing of it. Less than 15 minutes later, I heard a loud banging noise. The kid had changed the version to pre-release 1.17 and blue screened the whole machine. The banging was him lifting the computer and bashing it on the desk. I go into the room to see the issue and saw the blue screen. At the time, I thought the banging may have been from outside. The rest of the kids were in our above-ground pool, and this conversation ensued. Nate. I tried to update Minecraft, and your computer kicked me out. Me. You're not supposed to do that. I explained to you my computer is very old, and we don't have much money for a new one. This kid always had the best of the best, so he had a nice gaming rig. Nate. Well, I'm bored anyway. I'm going outside. Me. All right. I restart my computer and go back to playing CSS with my friends for around an hour before my little cousin, comes into my room. Let's call her Entitled Cousin, as she becomes important now. Entitled Cousin. Hey, OP, can I play Roblox on your computer? She asks nicely for once. Me. Oh, hey, sorry, but my computer can't run Roblox. This is half true. It can run very basic games, but can't run games more advanced, like Arsenal, Royal High, Adopt Me. If you try to run games more advanced, you'll hit 2 gigabytes of RAM usage, and that blue screens the computer. She only plays Adopt Me and Royal High. Entitled Cousin. You're lying. I've seen you play Roblox on it before. I wasn't playing Roblox at the time. I was playing Doom. Me. Well, I never did play Roblox on this. I'm telling Mom. She starts to storm off, and I quickly realize I'm in deep trouble. I quickly tell my friends what's happening before chaos strikes. Entitled Mom walks into my room and says, Why can't she play Roblox? Me. My computer physically cannot run Roblox. Do you not know about computers? I do know about computers. Also, can't she just play Roblox on your iPhone? She has an iPhone X, which is more than capable. Entitled Mom. Because my phone can't run Roblox. Your computer obviously can. Look, it's 100 times the size, she says, putting her phone next to the laptop, mocking me like a kid. At this point, I know she can't be reasoned with, and I just cave and get her on her Roblox account and lay in my bed. Entitled Cousin, at first, is happily playing Roblox lobby games before she joins Royal High. This whole time, I'm on my phone next to her, oblivious. I was actually surprised it was playing at above 15 frames per second when I looked at what she was doing. I eventually left my room after 30 minutes because I needed to do the dishes. Apparently, Nate had been inside and was in the bathroom when I walked by, slipping into my room when I left. I'm unaware how long he was in there, but maybe 20 minutes before I hear a crash. I go into the room and find that they had thrown the laptop to the floor. I lose my temper and say to get out. I look at my laptop, now on the floor, and see the display still works, but to my horror, she had opened up 23 Chrome tabs, had Royal High still running, and like 12 YouTube videos, all at 720p, taking up well over 2 gigabytes of RAM. I don't know how it didn't blue screen, but it obviously wasn't working because you couldn't click on anything. This laptop is junk, yes, but I paid $30 for it. I scrounged my money, and to watch them violate my things like this made me upset. I couldn't even turn it off, it was running so slow. It had to have taken 3 gigabytes at least for its slowness. Entitled Mom walks into the room and starts to get mad at me. "Why did you kick them off the computer?" she says, taking the laptop in her arms. She tries to click stuff, but it doesn't work. "Why isn't the computer working?" Me. "Because your daughter and her friend broke it." "They wouldn't do such a thing. They said you threw it to the ground because you wanted to play on it. I believe them. I wouldn't count on what you say. Learn some manners. We are guests, you jerk. We are priority." She throws the laptop on the floor with force before walking out. My mom heard this. She's barred from our house now. The laptop still works, but she threw it so hard it broke the battery and only works plugged into a wall. It runs at 1/3 the speed it used to, and it only plays CSS at 15 frames per second instead of 30 to 45. The fans don't work, and it blue screened every few hours. But I'm hoping to save for a new PC very soon, but it's unlikely. Edit. No, I cannot sue, as we don't have the means, and if I did, it would be useless because the laptop price would be done over by legal fees. Speaking of Roblox, have you ever played Roblox? Or how about Minecraft? Please let us know. Minecraft for the win, bruh. Am I the jerk for demanding payment for items ruined by a kid I was supposed to supervise? A few days ago, my neighbors, early 40s, approached me and asked if I would be willing to watch their daughter, who's about 11 or 12, Rhea, while they went to get their shots. I agreed. I made it clear to my neighbors that they would have to pick up Rhea before 1:30 p.m., as I had a court hearing that I couldn't miss under any circumstances. I am a lawyer. They promised they would be back in time. At around 1:30 p.m., they informed me that they would be late. It was too late to make any alternate arrangements, so I fixed Rhea a quick lunch and told her to watch TV, or Netflix. I have the kid mode on. I finished up my hearing around 3 and came out to see Rhea. I found her in my room trying on my heels, lipstick, and other courtroom gear, such as a black blazer and a robe. The lipsticks were broken, the white shirts were stained, and the heels were scuffed. I do not know how that girl managed to cause so much damage in the first place. I was angry, but I did not see it fit to reprimand her. Rhea's parents finally showed up around 3:30 p.m. and took her home. I asked to have a word with one of them. Her father stayed back, and I told him about the items she ruined and that I expected him to repay the amount for cleaning/replacement after I showed them the receipts. I expected him to apologize, but instead, he blew up at me and accused me of leaving his kid alone and claimed that anything could have happened to her. He even threatened to file a case against me. I was taken aback. Firstly, I would not have left her unsupervised if him and his wife would have returned on time. Secondly, I do not feel that 11 is an age where she's going to be in danger if left alone. I told him to try his luck in court and stated that if he doesn't agree, I would send them a demand notice for the aforementioned costs. Him and his wife have gotten the Residents Association involved, and while some of them are on my side, others are saying I'm the jerk for using the lawyer card over something so tiny. The total cost of the items ruined is well over 10,000 rupees. So, am I the jerk? Edit. I'm sorry I left out this crucial detail. I never actually left my home. I was attending the hearing virtually and was in a different room in the same house. The door was closed, but unlocked. I told Rhea she could enter or call out my name if she needed anything. Update. This morning, Rhea's mother came to see me. She apologized for her daughter and her husband and said that they were late because Rhea's father thought it would be a good idea to not complete the mandatory registration for their shots and simply tried to walk into a center. She was terrified at the idea of going to court and said she would try to get her husband to pay. She's a housewife, no independent income. I told her not to worry. I won't take the costs of the items and I wouldn't send any notice. I also wouldn't be watching their kid again. She understands and apologized once more. She bought some delicious food as well. She admitted that her husband spoils their daughter and she is also concerned, but she is silenced by him. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you tell them they have to pay you for the items or not? Please let us know. I can't drive anywhere without permission? Okay, I'll follow that rule maliciously. This happened when I was 16 years old and just got my driver's license. My parents had me run to the store to pick up some groceries. I stopped by my friend's house on the way back home for maybe 5 minutes to show him I got my license and I was out driving alone. It was really a fun moment in the life of a 16-year-old. My stepmom, Mary Ann, freaked out. "We did not give you permission to drive to Bill's house. We told you to go to the store and that is all." I told Mary Ann and my dad that they had let me drive to Matt's house the day before, so I didn't think it was a big deal. They went unreasonable and laid down the unbendable rule that set up the malicious compliance. "You are not allowed to drive anywhere we do not give explicit permission for you to drive, period. End of sentence. Just because you were allowed to do it previously does not ever give you the permission another time. Ever." Fast forward 3 days later. My 13-year-old stepsister has been a jerk to me all day, and I'm sick of her BS. She goes quiet for about 30 minutes and then comes out all sickly sweet. "Hey Brian, it's time to take me to ballet." I've taken her to ballet 3 days a week since I got my license. It's basically one of my chores, but I see my opportunity to say, "Forget you," to all 3 of them at once. "Sorry, Tina, I'm not allowed to take you to ballet. The parents didn't tell me to take you, and I don't want to get in trouble." She screams, she cries, she begs, she threatens. She calls her mom and leaves a message. She calls my dad and leaves a message. Just like Steve Miller says, time keeps on slipping into the future. I'm not sure I'm brave enough to hang on to the bitter end and actually go through with it. I'm shaking, but I know I've got them dead to rights. No call back from the parents, and the clock goes on past the start of her class. Stepmom comes home and Tina runs to meet her. "Tina, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be at ballet." I hear Tina tell her rendition of the story, leaving out how miserable she had been, and they go back and forth. Mary Ann comes pounding down the hall and yells, "As God is my witness, you just wait till your father gets home." I had to stifle a laugh because I never really believed people actually said that. An hour later, Dad comes home and the 2 of them go running out to meet him and tell him how horrible I was. I wait in my room for the hammer to fall. About 10 minutes later, my dad calls down the hall. "Brian, would you please come down here and talk to us?" "Well, Brian, you did it." "What do you mean, Dad?" "You got us all, and there's absolutely nothing we can do about it." "Okay, let's make this reasonable for everyone." And they did. They agreed that they were over the top. They recognized that Tina isn't always very nice to me, and they spoke to her about that. I was allowed to have reasonable freedom if I was driving somewhere, since I had good grades and had never been in trouble. I walked down the hall back to my room, my back to my parents, with the world's biggest grin on my face. Furious guest demands to know why we charged his card for room damage. Duh. I work at a Motel 6, which is franchised and owned by a guy who owns around 75% of Motel 6s in our state, as well as Purple Roof Inn in this state and several neighboring states. He also owns a bunch of Super 7s as well, and our policy is to take credit cards and cash without a security deposit. Well, that might change after this, and I hope so. That policy is insane. I don't know how you can own that many hotels and not realize what a disaster policy it is to not take a security deposit with cash payments, especially considering the brands he owns. So for the past week or so, we've had some sketchy people check into a variety of rooms on various days. We still have our lockdown policies in place concerning the number of people per room. For our 2-bedrooms, it's 4 people, exception for families and their kids. Also, housekeepers will not enter stayover rooms, so we have linens, towels, etc. at the desk. So in this particular room, I've noticed that it's been having heavy traffic. For our area, that usually means crime. I keep an eye on that room throughout the week and notice that there are 5 other rooms that the people in that room seem to be familiar with. Like, I'd see them meeting in the parking lot, exchanging packages, and going in and out of each other's rooms, etc. So I inform my GM and the other shifts, and I keep my eyes on those rooms through the week. They aren't doing anything overt and are generally staying within our rooms, except for a noise complaint here and there. About 2 days before they checked out, I noticed an increase in people on bikes coming and going from those rooms with backpacks, so I'm certain that crime is involved. But as I said, they were keeping within our rules, and we've been pretty lax about occupancy cap, but not for like party rooms with 10 people. So I just note what's happening. So they check out en masse, and I come in that day, and my boss is fuming. She says the main room that I initially took notice of broke the toilet. I thought, oh, okay, probably the handle or maybe the toilet seat. But no, they broke the entire toilet in half. How? I do not know. The toilet tank cover was shattered in the shower. Again, I do not know how. Their headboards were busted off the wall, and the water leaked into 3 adjoining rooms, not occupied, and caused damage. She then said that 2 of the other rooms were tattooing and spilled ink all over the floor and on the beds. So now those linens are trash and we cannot rent those rooms out until the flooring is replaced. One of the rooms had hair dye all over it, on the beds and the towels, so those are trash now. And the rooms were trashed, like multiple days of food containers stacked around the trash can trashed. So those rooms cannot be rented until we can clean and air them out. And of course, they smoked in all of them. My boss called the owner and he blew up on her, asking her why were we renting to people like that? Like we can tell. He asked if she got payment for the damage, and of course she didn't because they paid cash. He flipped out and she reminded him of his policy, which sort of shut him up. I walked in just as she was hanging up. So I checked the guy's stay history and he did have a card on file for one of those days, so my boss told me to run it for $500 and surprisingly it went through. So that cheered her up a bit. So a bit later on in my shift, the guy calls me screaming and asking why we charged his card. I calmly explained it was for room damages, and he screams, "What damages?" Like, really? Come on, you know what I'm talking about. I say the documented damage from the room that we're reporting to the police as well, and that shuts him up. He hung up on me and he hasn't called back. Of course, we didn't report anything to the police, but we did document everything. The next day, one of the people from those rooms tried to check back in, and my boss was like, nope, but pretended to get their ID for DNR. Needless to say, all those rooms are also perma DNR. You must have your director's permission to enter the building. Hi everyone. I recently executed a bit of malicious compliance that I thought I'd share with you. During lockdown, we haven't been able to regularly access our office and have instead had to work from home. Most of my team are field-based anyway, so it hasn't been a huge problem. Next to our main office is a workshop/storage area that's managed and accessed only by my team. We use this to store equipment and materials and carry out some work in there. Typically, 1 or 2 team members will be there each day, though it could be as many as 5. If staff are collecting and dropping off equipment, they might need 2 or more visits per day. On the rare occasion we do need to go into the main office, we have to get permission from a director. We would normally do this a few days in advance once we had a piece of work that required access. Without this permission, security won't let us in. As the offices are in a city center location, parking is expensive, but our employer will provide it in our own secure car park. To access this car park, again, you have to email for permission. At some point, someone noticed that staff were requesting parking in the car park, but not access to the main building. I was asked about this by the facility manager as there was a concern that people were trying to get free parking for personal errands and not work. I explained that the staff were carrying out work or collecting equipment from the store and I'd given them permission. I was told that this was unacceptable and only our director could give permission to access buildings. I decided the best way to prove my point was with a little malicious compliance. I did a few checks and saw that there was an almost immediate opportunity. I instructed my staff that they weren't to access the workshop/store unless they had permission. I said that I knew it was ridiculous, but I had a plan and everything would be sorted within a week. I also told them that for the next few days, we would be catching up with all of our mandatory training and odd jobs. I told staff if any requests for work came in to ask the customer to call back later in the week, and I would delay any new jobs being allocated for a few days. This all happened on the Tuesday. Wednesday and Thursday were spent catching up on boring admin and e-learning, and then Friday arrives. I allocate jobs to staff and advise my team that if they need access to the workshop/store, then they must email for permission, and entering without consent could lead to disciplinary action. I advised that they should wait by the security desk at the main building until permission was granted. A few hours into the day, I start getting emails from my staff saying they've needed access to the store and have emailed for permission but haven't heard back. I advised that they wait. After another hour or so, I get an irate phone call from the facility manager asking what's going on. I explained that my staff aren't allowed in without permission, and so they are waiting by security, so there are no allegations of them sneaking into the workshop. He asks why permission wasn't granted in advance, and I explained that the work requests had only come in on that day. He explains that the director is on leave and can't grant permission, but he could grant in his absence. I refused and said that only our director could give permission. I agreed to ask the staff to leave for home and to postpone their jobs. Monday rolled around and I got a phone call from the director. He had received complaints from the facility manager and a few other senior managers about the situation. Thankfully, he realized how ridiculous the situation was and said he had only agreed to keep the facility manager quiet. It was clear that I'd orchestrated the situation, but the director was willing to take the blame for the issue. The decision was reversed, and now staff don't need permission. One other plus point is that I've stopped receiving email reminders about my team members' training being out of date. Finally saw one. I follow these "I don't work here lady" posts with interest, but it is very rare I ever see anyone go off on one of these rants. That is, until today. You're going to need just a little context here though. I live in the north of England in what is seen as quite an affluent area. Not that all of us who live here are affluent. There are definitely two ends of town, and I live in the more down-to-earth end of town. At the other end, you see lots of new Mercedes, Audis, BMWs, Lexus, and now Tesla cars being driven around. I drive a 6-year-old Ford. You get the idea. What we do have near me are a really few excellent artisan shops. There's a butcher selling some of the best beef I've ever tasted, and we have a craft brewery and a coffee roaster. We also have a small supermarket, and this is where this all takes place. Just up the road, we have what we call a special school. It deals with adults with a range of disabilities. The carers work one-on-one with the kids, and they take them out to shops and get them into shopping independently. Those of us who live here know the carers, know the kids, and always have a chat when they're in the shops. It's lovely to see some of them when they make independent purchases. This is where caring comes into play. I had gone into the supermarket to pick up a few things for dinner tonight and bumped into one of the carers who I know from volunteering. She told the girl she was with to carry on around the shop and collect her shopping. As we were chatting, I saw a Tesla pull up in the disabled spot outside, and Karen walks in. I mentioned as she passed that she shouldn't be in the disabled spot, and she just looked straight past me and carried on. Shortly after, there was a raised voice, and the carer and I heard, "Don't just stand there looking stupid. Go and get me a bottle from the back. Now!" The kids all wear a lanyard and a badge around their neck telling you that they're at the school, and this must have confused Karen. As we rounded the corner, we saw the terrified kid in tears and Karen standing there. The next words out of her mouth were, "This place gets worse. They must be employing morons now." The carer stepped in and said, "You need to stop. This girl is in my care and is disabled." Karen responded and said, "They shouldn't be out with normal people, and you should be controlling her." The carer was dumbstruck. It was at this point I decided it was time I chipped in. What sort of person thinks their expensive car gives them the right to park where disabled people have a space reserved for them, and then hurl insults at people being given the opportunity to start living their life as independently as they can? Karen came back with the, "We worked for everything we have." In the North, we have a term for describing people with money and no class, and I loved her face when I turned back to her and said, "No, love, you're just all fur coat and no class." No major histrionics at the end, she just stormed out, nobody got arrested. We calmed the girl down and helped her finish her shopping, and I told her not to worry. Not everybody is as sad as Karen was. Boss fires best employee because of my compliance. Hospitality isn't known for its amazing personalities, but no one could take the cake of a boss and his wife that I worked for about a decade ago. They took over a beautiful pub/restaurant in a mountain range that the locals love to visit. It would have taken almost no effort at all to have a very successful business, as there was no real competition and the area was very affluent. On weekends, there was always a queue of customers. Unfortunately for all the staff and the locals mentioned, the owners were on a massive ego trip, having moved from the city to set up this restaurant as a way to settle down, which they clearly were not capable of in the slightest. The wife boss will now be known as Karen. They were so highly strung that the hairs would stand up on the back of your neck when they came into the building. I learned to expect that every word that came out of their mouths to be either barking orders or criticizing even the most petty of details. I kid you not, Karen yelled at me once because I hadn't turned all the coffee cup handles so that they were pointing in the same direction. I started working there part-time and managed to put up with their antics much better than the countless other part-timers that came and went. For one, I was content to just do whatever they told me, as deep down I knew it would come back to bite them in the end. Being their longest staff member, after just 4 months, I kid you not, I got the best pick of shifts. Also, by being one of the only fully trained members of staff, I never really worked directly with them, as I would cover the shifts on their days off. Every day, they seemed to be getting more and more stressed and micromanaging, to the point they decided to just install cameras everywhere so they could sit at home and monitor the staff. I would get calls multiple times an hour telling me things like, "One of the tables needs to be cleared." The customers had barely left. Or that I was standing and talking to a local too long and should be sweeping or something. Unfortunately, this kind of corporate McDonald's-style ethos didn't really work when the majority of your customers were regulars who wanted a coffee, a meal, and a 10-minute chat with a friendly face. One thing they were really hung up on was the till. Such was their paranoia about the till that only the bosses, myself, and one other girl, Jessica, could operate it no matter what or how busy we were, which of course led to multiple situations of inconvenience. Also, we had to count out the till several times a day and deposit the money in the safe, even if we had only made $20. After a particularly busy day, I was closing and had received new instructions just that day from Karen that from now on, we would keep all big denominations, $50 or more, QI roll, hidden under the main compartment of the till. From the moment she said it, I knew it was another nitpicky rule that she'd forget about straight away. So of course, what else should I do but follow orders? The next morning, when I finally checked my phone around 10 a.m., I saw that I had 10 missed calls from work, and also worryingly from Jessica, the other staff member who I got on really well with. I called Jessica first to hear her tell me that Karen had come in and counted the till, and when she couldn't find $50, accused Jessica of stealing it and fired her on the spot. No, I'm not joking. Jessica had called me from the car park to say goodbye, and while I immediately knew what happened and told her about it, as well as saying sorry to her, we were both glad she didn't have to work in that nightmare place anymore. I was angry that the owners had treated Jessica like that. I knew they were crazy, but to fire someone accusing them of stealing was a new low. However, I did get great satisfaction from calling them and putting on my best facade of nonplussed. The conversation went like this. Karen, I've just had to fire Jessica as she was caught stealing. The till is missing $50. I still couldn't believe that they didn't ask me first, as I was the last one to actually count the money the night before. Why did they even think it was Jessica and not me? They were completely nuts. Me, in my best malicious compliance voice. Oh, that's weird. I definitely counted it correctly and put all the money just as you told me, with the $50 notes in the bottom compartment as you explained just yesterday. I'm not going to lie. The following pause brought me great glee as I could practically hear the buzzing in Karen's head as she opened the till and found the missing $50 note right where it should be. Having just fired the second longest staff member they had, me still being the first, meant they had to work all of Jessica's shifts before we could hire and train another, saying goodbye to all their time off for weeks. Also, I made sure to tell our regular customers, who took the time to get to know the staff by name, what had happened when they asked where lovely Jessica had gone. Many stopped coming in unless it was my shift, having seen the real personalities of the bosses, and they tipped the staff more too. I stayed there for a short while longer and was happy to hear that Jessica had found a job in a much nicer cafe soon after leaving. I left after I had saved up money to go traveling and found out that the restaurant closed just a few weeks later. I don't think they even lasted a year total. Whatever they did next, I do hope it didn't involve employing anyone else, as they definitely do not have the personalities to manage staff. Come watch this video next, you're gonna love it. Join as a member today and we'll give you a special shout out in our next video. Or have us make a video for you. Head over to our Fiverr, link pinned in the comments below.